Hey, we're going to talk about that right now with two of my friends. My name is Amanda Bullen, and I work for Beat & Bow Companies. I get to lead the Kingdom at Work team, our HR team, and our health and wellness team. And I have two of my friends here with me that are in the marketplace, and we want to spend a few minutes talking about what it looks like to know your why and to work with purpose. So why don't you guys tell us who you are and how you serve in your communities? Al, you want to go first?
Sure. I'm Al Escamilla. My wife, Krista, and I own and operate Rig ID in Midland, Texas. And we started in 2014 and believe that, that was our purpose. And it's been a great road that has been led by God, and we're glad to be here today. Thanks.
My name is Bo Dunnigan, and I'm the CEO of Dunnigan Transport. My wife and I have been operating it. The business is I'm second generation. We're almost 45 years in business. We operate Abilene, San Angelo, and Midland, and we provide a tank truck service in the oil and gas industry.
Awesome. Thank you both for being here. So we want this to be like an interactive panel, and so we might go off script because I'm not going to lie, we don't have a script. That's what makes it fun. So what shift began to happen in the way that you viewed your work? Bo, let's start with you.
Okay. Well, there was a big shift in my life. I didn't get saved until I was 35, about 10 years ago. And man, my life was a wreck. I tell you, I was raised in Abilene and spent most of my life with boots on the ground, either on a farm, ranch, or out in the oil field. And so I was a Christian by default. And what I mean was I wasn't Muslim or atheist. So from West Texas, you just must be a Christian, right? Man, that's a dangerous spot to be. But anyway, my life was a mess at 35, and I broke. My business was broke. My marriage was on, a shoestring. And so I surrendered it to God. And I tell you, God, He's a God of order. He allowed me to get my relationship with Him, then my wife, then my family, and once that was stable, I was able to get back into the business and start saying, "Okay, God, this is a mess. How do I re-enter the world of Dunnigan Transport, or am I supposed to re-enter the world of Dunnigan Transport?" And that's how it initially went for me in the beginning.
I love that you said that God is in the business of order. And He got you and Him in order, and then your wife in order, and then He got you and your work in order.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So in your work, driving into that just a tad bit deeper, what shifted? Like what shifted with the way that you worked? How did your mindset change?
Well, we typically are driving enterprise value in our business. And in our case, the more trucks we have on the road and the more customers we have, the higher our enterprise value. And we pretty much do that I did almost at any cost. And so God completely took that away. I held as we all do, our Rolodex of customers, and those were mine. And I wouldn't let anybody have those because that meant that I had security with those customers. And immediately God said, hand those over. And I really haven't been able to pick them back up. That was a big shift in just trusting the team. And they've done a lot better job with it than I would have. But that was a very hard part for me initially.
Yeah, that's good. Al, how about you? Can you tell us about what happened in a shift with you in your life and in your work?
I think the key word there is shift, because mine has had multiple gears, right? So it started in first, and I'm not sure what gear we're in right now, but as I was telling you yesterday, as you drive out here, Big Two News, the building is still there by the airport. Most of you, if you're from Midland, Odessa, you know which one it is. And my wife's first day at work, I met her, and it wasn't by accident. So I happened to decide that I thought that I needed to be on TV when I really didn't. But I ended up at the station that day, her first day of work, and I would say that was the first big shift, is when I met my wife. And then the second was when our firstborn was born. You drive home and you're just like, okay, this is not about me anymore. And as I mentioned earlier, prior to having children, it was a lot about me. And so when you have kids and that drive home, I still remember driving, 10 miles an hour with the car seat in the back, not sure what I was doing. And my life changed that day. I mean, everything that I did from that point on was really about serving God first and then serving family. And I wanted to make sure that, you're going to make mistakes along the way, whether it's in business and in family, and gosh, we all do, right? And it takes us through different seasons. I mean, in our business, we were in the uniform business and we still are, but during COVID, we turned our store into a grocery store for 30 days. And then, the white uniforms that people wear when they were testing. So I invented a thing called it was a coat. And that's what the hospitals wore. So between Lubbock and El Paso, we sold about 500,000 of those uniforms to serve people for testing. And so that took us through several gears right there. But the whole way, we were trying to serve God and serve our community. Regardless of what it was, whether it was groceries or uniforms, we wanted to grow where we were planted and make sure that we served Him and we served our family. And I think the key to it all, as you're going through that shift, is you just can't give up.
Really great nuggets of truth. I hope y'all wrote some of those down. One of the things you said, Al, and we've talked several times, you've told me that, the birth of your firstborn, you went from me-centered and kind of being chasing titles and money and what you thought was success to being we-centered and being more focused on the outside.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of different ways, especially when you're young, and now in the day of social media, success can be measured so many different ways. But really, success at the end of the day is, what are you doing for others, and how are you serving the Lord doing it? And George W. Bush, when he left office, he came to Midland, and one of the things that he said was, "We have an obligation to help those that can't help themselves," and that's always stuck with me. And I think through our business, regardless of what we're doing, that's what we really have to do, and just help however we can.
Yeah. So when you start down this journey of knowing your why, that there's purpose wherever God has placed me, and whatever season, whatever role He's placed me in, there's going to be a journey of ups and downs. So Bo, why don't you tell us some of those ups and some of those downs in this journey that you've had? Okay.
Yeah. So, there's many, one thing when you start, clearly God gave me the only purpose to get back into the business, the only reason to get back in the family business was to find value and learn to love people. Now, loving 100 plus truck drivers individually is tough, and so He doesn't expect that from me, but He's taught me how to learn to love a group of people as a whole, and then individually has connected me with many. And so and then the bigger thing, I struggle with it today and I struggle with it then, is accountability. And you've heard it said, loving accountability. And so I'm a relational guy, and so, full of second chances. And a lot of times we want it worse than the person themselves wants it. And so obviously in our business it's highly regulated, and the regulatory and just the safety demands of the industry is that we have a pretty low tolerance for mistakes. We have to, and that makes it really challenging. If they don't want to better themselves, or they don't want to see themselves grow, and we see the potential in them. I really struggle with that. But with that being said, we see we tend to fixate on maybe less than 10% of the things that don't go right. But there are little nuggets every day that we see, and it's God speaking to us and showing us that He's with us. He hears us, He sees us. And you really have to be involved in the company. It's not this big, grandiose, split the Red Sea. Although I believe in those miracles and, wholeheartedly love to see them when they come around, but it's more of a subtle, nuggets each day in the workplace. And that's that's the fruit of it, and that's the results. But it is messy. You'll hear, is it messy? And it's extremely messy.
So you get to work with a bunch of rowdy guys. Yeah. And you say, I want to love these guys. What does that tangibly look like on a daily basis?
Well, one of the key indicators that I was to get back into business is that I had an ugly past from, youth using drugs and abusing alcohol and going off and doing things that no husband should do. And And so God spoke to me very clearly, like he does all of us, and said, I didn't use all this just to put you on a different path. And so a lot of times, well, not a lot of times, more times than most, I can relate with the driver. I've done it. I am a truck driver. I started in a truck. I didn't go to college and get an accounting degree and come back to the family business. I started boots on the ground and was, pretty dang wild. And so I can relate with them and know where they are. And so I know that's God showed me early on, and he uses that. And it's really a good thing about being, transparent and vulnerable in that we've been on their path and we know what we're going through and that there's a better way.
That's so good. You can meet people right where they are. And the sweet thing that I love that you said, like, God didn't just get you on the right path for you. He does it for so many others. And if you're humble enough to let him use it and to speak into others' lives, like, that's a great way to love people right where you are. Al, why don't you tell us about the journey of kind of some of the ups and the downs that you guys have faced in the marketplace?
How much time do we have? It's, the journey is, again, I think it's going to be bumpy. It's going to be great. It's going to be a lot of things. One of the things that I learned is that you have to really believe in what you've been blessed with, right? So believe in your blessings. And when you hear people say, well, I built an organization, and you'll hear the advice, hire your weaknesses. If you're not good at accounting, well, hire a great accountant. If you're not, you don't understand law, hire a lawyer. So I really believe that, God blesses us with, it's kind of like when you go to college and you get a major, that's really your blessing. Whatever you understand and what you're good at, that's what God's blessing is. And so in order to get through some of those, troughs that you're given, if you really find a team that has blessings that you don't have, it's going to help you along the way. And I'm listening to Bo's story, and if I'm his dad, I'm sitting here going, God, why did you, take my son through this? And then at the end of the day, he ends up running the company that he built. None of that matters because he's right where he wanted him to be. And so I know as a dad and as a business owner that that's what, that's a dream, to be able to do what Bo's achieved. So the road is always going to be bumpy. It's never going to be straight downhill for sure. So I think that, understanding what you're blessed with and taking advantage of it, thanking God for it every day, and using it as best as you possibly can. That's the key.
Al, one of the ways that you were telling me that you partner with God in your work is just by listening. And listening and then asking, like, what am I supposed to do about this? You were telling me a story about a team member that you just were listening and they had a need for club sports for their kid. Not anything holy, not anything big, but it was big to them. Will you tell us about that?
Yeah, so we had one of our employees, and she's a single mom. And when we were backstage, I was sitting there thinking, we have 3 women that work for us that are all single moms, and this one in particular has a 13-year-old son, and just like any other teenager, coming home, getting in a little bit of trouble, really no guidance, and so he loves football, and so it was not football season; it was track season. So I called my friend John Norman, who runs a youth sports league in Midland, and I said, "Hey, I want to pay for this kid to run track this summer," and so we called the employee and said, "Hey, look, this is already taken care of. We just want you to get him out there." And I'll tell you, it was a life shift for him. And so as employers, we try to listen, and like as Bo alluded to earlier, sometimes we want it more than what they want it themselves. But I think regardless of that, you have to be who you are, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And so in this case, the kid ran track, he's played football, he's doing off-season football, and I went out and took pictures of him playing football during the fall, and he's so small, but he's so gritty and so gutsy that it just makes you so proud. And so I think that being a good listener and understanding what your employees are saying and doing and treating them like their family, sometimes it doesn't always turn out the way that you want it to, but if you just stay true to yourself and what God's telling you, then you're doing the right thing.
Just this week, I was listening to a podcast, and they talked about how one of the evidence of the kingdom of God in your life is that just serving just flows out of you. And that is beautiful that we hear in both of you, and that wherever you are, you can hear people, and then you can serve them by just hearing what they need. You know, whether it's affirmation, whether it's paying for a kid to be on a club track team, maybe it's buying a meal for someone. Well, one of the things I want everybody to leave with is like, what is a tangible action that anyone can start practicing right now in the marketplace? Bo?
Yeah, so for me, I was thinking about this early on and still today, and it's something that I'm comfortable with, but I have to really focus and be intentional about it to get comfortable with. But again, growing up in the oil and gas and in the truck, and just I saw myself as a tough guy. Didn't show any emotion. My wife would tell you that she never saw me cry the first 15 years of our marriage, and so. When all this, when I figured out, okay, this is what God has me planned. So I got with our crew, our leadership crew, and we sat down and just being transparent and vulnerable. And I just laid it out there. I remember sitting in that conference room that I'd sat in for 15 years and, threw things against the wall and cussed and said things. And I just went and dismissed all that. And I really just, broke down in tears and put my heart out there and said, guys, I've been doing it wrong. We're going to do it different. I don't know what that looks like, but here's what's going on. And man, the feedback and the support and the understanding, but more than that, it just opened up conversation with the whole team. And it still does. When I find myself, I tend to want to hold my cards, and I tend to not want to be open, want to carry the load. And I feel like that's my job as a CEO to carry that load. And what the kingdom has shown me is that is exactly wrong. It's to share and be open about what challenges owners or CEOs or presidents or anybody in your team, to share those experiences together. And so that's something that I still, from early on and then today, is just being open and vulnerable.
Yeah, that's great. You don't hear that a lot of times in this industry, do you? Especially from men. Thanks for saying that, Bo. Al?
Well, just news for Bo. He's talking about being vulnerable. When you get to be my age, people can ask you, how are your kids, and you start crying. So just so you know. I think a couple of things, that have worked for me in our family is, you really have to take care of yourself and lead by example. So, Krista and I, we exercise every day and we pray every day. And I always tell my friends and my employees and our family that those are the two things for me that I never feel bad about. I feel great when you walk out of, church or when you walk out of the gym. Those are the two things you never walk out going, man, I wish I wouldn't have done that. It really does help. And so we try to carry those, encourage our employees to do that. And then also, as part of being vulnerable, being able to say, man, I really messed that up. If you have a customer that's upset or an employee that's upset, instead of just trying to put blame on someone, it's easier, regardless of whose fault it is, it's always the owner's fault, right? And owning it and understanding that, because it helps the employees also own their mistakes as they make mistakes, and you're always going to have them. And then that becomes an opportunity to put a new process in or put a new system in place. And so you grow from that just like you do in life. And so I think just being vulnerable, being honest, transparent, just like Bo said, it's no secret, but also making sure that you give the glory to God, because that's what we're here. That's what our purpose is. And, I think I told you yesterday, I don't wake up every single day, dying to go to my shop to do embroidery. I enjoy doing embroidery because it gives us the ability to provide to our family and provide to our community. And so again, own your blessings, understand them, and grow where you're planted.
Yeah. I think what Al just said is huge, and that he doesn't wake up every day dying to go embroider something, but that's what God has placed in his hands, so he's going to steward it well. So we're going to take a few minutes and read 2 reflection questions for you to think on, and then I'm going to dismiss you for a break. So the questions that we have here, how has your perspective on work and purpose evolved over time, and where do you see God shaping your journey today? So something to think on. The second one, what is one practical way that you can invite God into your daily work, whether through prayer, a mindset shift, or maybe an act of generosity? So we're going to give you just about a minute and a half to think on those.